Hello, Beard Wizard family, beer enthusiasts, everybody else who has come to the show. Um, Finally, we're back to another episode of Battle of the Retro American Beers. I started this a while back and kind of put it on hold because we had the Battle of the Beer Advent calendars that came up in the winter. And now I'm back to the last round. I actually thought I had the final round last time, but I had an odd number of beers. So to go into the semifinals, I had one out, and so I needed another set. Originally, I was going to do one of these beers versus Anchor Steam, and I could not find any Anchor Steam here. I've seen it before, but I could not find it. So I just settled for another sort of retro beer. I had to look it up and make sure it was an older beer that's not as well known or not as popular, and see if it fit the bill. And it does. So we are going to take a look today at a couple of beers. I'm going to tell you what I think about them, which one moves on to the semifinals to battle against the likes of Stroh's and Blatz and Schlitz and the other beers that made it through to the semifinals. I'm also going to put together a bracket so you guys can see what's what and who makes it to the next round. So I like to make this as educational as possible, so we're going to talk a little bit about the beers themselves, about the breweries, why they're a retro brewery, give you guys a little bit of a history lesson before we get into the sampling, because I don't want this to just be me drinking beer and telling you which one's better. Also, be sure to subscribe. Our goal this year is 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I need everybody's help. Click that red subscribe button and join the Beard Wizard family. Cost you nothing, helps me out a great deal. We need to keep pushing. We're a little low. We're at the number that we're getting every month is a little lower than we need to be to get to 5,000. So I need extra clicks, extra help. If you guys can do that, I would appreciate it so much. So here we go. What do we got first up first in a bottle? I thought this was going to be a ringer because it was in a bottle. But we have Lonestar beer, which is originally out of Texas. I'm kind of surprised I could get it up here. But Lonestar Brewery has been around since 1884. It was actually the first large mechanized brewery in Texas. Adolphus Busch of Anheuser-Busch founded it along with a group of San Antonio businessmen. So it's almost like Lonestar was a side project of the Anheuser-Busch group. It is considered the national beer of Texas. The brand has endured and refreshed generations of Texans. The beer from the big country is always abundant in backyard hangs, enjoying Texas's plentiful waters and front row at your favorite show. In the 70s, Lonestar sales exploded as the beer became adopted by the cosmic cowboys of country music. This era was spearheaded by Jerry Retzoff, former marketing promotion and manager for Lonestar, etc., but close association with Willie Nelson. And the Austin music scene. As Texas evolved, Lonestar symbolizes all we know, etc., and so on and so forth. So I'm surprised I've never even heard of Lonestar because apparently it's the national beer of Texas. The most common Texas beer I see around here is Scheinerbach, which I love because it's a German style beer. It's made by Germans, or at least came from a German recipe and German family. So, up against Lonestar. Everybody has seen this one, Icehouse. I was surprised. I wanted to know, is Icehouse considered a retro beer? You may or may not have run into this. Icehouse is like really cheap beer. Really, really cheap beer. But it, in fact, is a retro beer, a lesser known beer. But it was started by the Miller Brewing Company in Milwaukee, that was founded in 1855 by Frederick Miller. Molson Coors acquired the brand in 2016. So this is Miller Brewing. I was looking for information about Icehouse. I guess does Icehouse fall under the Miller brand? I did not do enough digging here. Hold on. Icehouse beer. It takes me to the Miller page. Why does it take me to the Miller page? I'm sorry, boys and girls. I failed. This is a live show. That's what happens sometimes. Did I just America's first domestic ice beer. Ice beer, traditionally beer fermented. Um, oh my God. Well, when I Googled Icehouse, when I was at the liquor store, um, it said that it was established in like 1880 something. Icehouse is not that old. Unfortunately, Icehouse does not qualify. Icehouse is disqualified as a retro American beer because I failed at my research. We're going to taste them anyway. We're going to see which one I like better. We're going to give you some commentary on them. But Icehouse does not qualify. And that's a failure on my part. So we're going to have to move forward. Let's just say Lonestar gets a bye week in the bracket and moves on to the semifinals. Because it is literally the last one. It's really hard to find some of these beers around here. Anyway, the first one up is Lonestar. Looks like a pretty standard American lager, very ambery yellow color, not even amber, more of a gold color. A little bit of bubbly. It really didn't pour with much of a head, and it didn't maintain a head at all, like literally at all. Within a minute, it was down to what you see here, literally nothing, and very little as far as carbonation goes. The air bubbles coming from the bottom are next to nothing. So, cheers. Not a lot of flavor. Not a lot of beer. It's not sour. It actually doesn't have much of a flavor profile at all. It's very crisp. It's refreshing, but it's not even high in carbonation. It's very mellow. I mean, it makes sense with the head and the bubbles. It doesn't really have a lot of carbonation going on. It doesn't taste like much at all. But unlike a lot of light beers and American lagers that don't taste like much, it also doesn't taste like those. It doesn't taste like really stale or cheap beer, which those usually taste really bad like that. I like beer with flavor. As far as I'm concerned, like if somebody were to hand me one of these and I drank it, I wouldn't be upset about it. I wouldn't go out of my way to buy it. There's literally nothing going on in this thing. It's got a little bit of saltiness to it too that I'm now getting on the back end, which is weird, but actually kind of makes sense because I know my grandfather who was from Oklahoma and I know his brother who was from Texas. Very common for them to put salt in their beer, and not just like today you see people put salt in Mexican beer. They put lime salt in like Corona or something. They would put salt in their Miller Lite. They would put salt in it, which I always thought was kind of unusual. So that saltiness, if that's what I'm getting, that's not that unusual for a beer from Texas. I'm fairly certain that's a relatively common sort of thing down there. Okay, so now we have an Icehouse. Icehouse poured with a very nice head. It's still retaining quite a bit of the foam and the bubbles definitely coming up. It's a little bit lighter. It's almost identical, but it's just a touch lighter than the Lonestar. All right, cheers. Also not a ton of flavor. For as cheap as this was, like this was literally a 4-pack was just a couple dollars. Um, it's not bad. It's actually better than a lot of the cheap beers that people drink, like Bud Light and stuff. I would drink Icehouse before I drank a Bud Light. That's actually not too bad. A little bit more carbonation than Lone Star. It's definitely not as clean tasting, I guess you would say. But it's not sour. It's not. Um, yeah, that's a pretty decent beer for what it is. Quite honestly, like I said, if I had my choice between like Bud Light and Coors Light, Miller Light, and Icehouse, I'd drink Icehouse. It doesn't taste like stale beer. Like Bud Light to me tastes like stale beer. Um, it just doesn't taste good. That's actually quite a bit better than what a lot of people drink. So by default, because I failed at my research, Lone Star is moving on to the next. Lone Star's getting a bye week and moving on to the semifinals. We're just going to say how that is. I will put together a bracket and show you what the current standings are. I do know that Stroh's moved on. I know that Blatz and Schlitz moved on. I think Mickey's moved on. I can't remember for sure. And then Lone Star's moving on. And I'll have to double check and see who else came out of the first round. And then we will have the semifinals and eventually the finals and crown the winner of the Battle of the Retro American Beers. You guys let me know what you think in the comments. Come back later for more. In here in a little bit, we will be looking at Just Trey's second diss track of Tom McDonald, talking about that. And let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys all again soon. You have a great one. Much love.